Welcome! This is the Fujifilm X100V, and like the title says, it's the best digital camera for photographers in 2023. Bold claim, I know, but let me tell you why. My name is Jack, and I am a film photographer based in San Diego, and this camera has been my digital camera of choice for the past 2 years for any and everything. Like the thousands of others who love this camera, I give it the highest praise. And in this video, I'll be focusing more on the shooting experience with the camera rather than the tech specs because there's a million videos on those already. I originally purchased this camera at the end of 2022 for holiday trips to both Paris and Hawaii. And for these trips, I wanted something that was compact, easy to use, analog-esque, and would survive the random Parisian or Hawaiian rainstorm if I got caught out in one. Thus, the X100V was a no-brainer. The most prominent feature that makes this camera stand out from the rest is Fujifilm's film simulations. Fujifilm preloads these cameras with essentially filters that emulate their current film stocks, which allow you to shoot digital with a film-inspired look, or having to pay the cost to buy these film stocks individually and shoot them on a film camera. This allows you to get the creativity of film without having to pay exorbitant prices for all of these film stocks. This is incredibly helpful for someone who wants to get the vibe of film in their photos without going bankrupt, in theory. However, now prices for these cameras have gone through the roof, and if you can even get your hands on one, they're no longer the budget cameras that they intended to be. Those currently looking to buy this camera know how expensive they are and how high prices have got, and are gonna hate me for how much I got this for. Back at the end of 2020, I got this camera for $1,100 with all the accessories like the thumb grip and the lens hood. I also picked up a moment diffusion filter to enhance the film vibes on these simulations. Out of all the simulations in the camera, I primarily shoot the Eterna stock for its soft and flat colors, but other film stocks that I really enjoy shooting with are classic chrome and honestly the standard. The color tones of this camera are outstanding, and there's so much range and depth from the highlights to the shadows in terms of color. When you combine that with the outstanding Fujifilm sensor, you're getting 26 megapixel incredibly sharp photos that most of the time you don't even need to take into post for editing, and you can just have them and be content with how beautiful they are straight out of camera. And I can't lie, one of the main reasons I was drawn to this camera are for its aesthetics and the form factor of the camera. I thought the Leica-esque body was gorgeous and small enough and light enough to be pocketable if needed, and it's the perfect travel size for trips through your neighborhood or around the world. Like I've mentioned in my previous videos, I think it's really important to have a camera that encourages you to shoot rather than one with the newest technology or the most impressive spec sheet. And I think for me, this camera is a perfect example of that. After purchasing this camera, I ended up selling my Sony a7 III, my Tamron 28-75 2.8, which was arguably the best spec'd entry-level professional camera on the market at the time. And I sold that for this dinky little APS-C camera because this camera made me inspired to shoot with it. I attribute a lot of that inspiration to the ergonomics, the optical viewfinder, and the analog dials of the camera, which like film makes every shot engaging to set up and think about and frame. And once you start using a camera with all of these features, you never want to go back. Now, no camera is perfect, and there's a reason I say this camera is the best for photographers. From my personal experience, this camera isn't really meant for video. It tends to overheat very quickly, even in low 4K settings, and if you've seen my first video on this channel, you'll notice when I am talking to the camera, I'm talking to the X100V and it's making a lot of clicking and snapping noises. That's because the motors in the lens using continuous focus are very close to the camera's microphone, and so unless you intend on recording audio externally, it's really difficult to just use this camera as your main video device, even if the image that it produces is still very sharp and very good quality. But I personally can't recommend it as a full-time video workhorse. The shooting experience on this camera truly is exceptional. Before my recent purchase of the Rolly 35, I would take this camera with me literally everywhere just because it's so compact and light and you get such quality images from it that it's hard to not to. What makes Fujifilm such an interesting company for its consumers or its camera users is the amount of customization they put into each camera. Now, I don't take full advantage of these features because there's so much, but you can fine-tune the amount of sharpness or color tones or anything and create your own film simulations. So to have such a high ceiling on creativity in such a small camera is something that I value heavily, and I can experiment with, and I can discover, and I can really hone in my creative vision for an image if I choose to. And what's so great about it is I don't have to shoot editorials with this. I can just shoot my everyday life as well, and it still gives me the same quality and the same experience and the same joy of shooting. What I like about this camera so much is that it allows you to focus on the fundamentals of shooting photography while getting results that are incredible. For example, all of your exposure main triangle settings are on the outside of this camera. Our aperture dial is just on the lens, and our shutter speed and ISO dial is right here on the top. So you can make any changes and settings that you need to before even turning the camera on. So if you want to set for a scene or a certain shot, you can have those settings set before even turning on the camera to make it easier to capture whatever images you need. And the comparisons in these settings are so comfortable to me because I learned photography with this camera right here. This is a Canon AE1, and just like the Fujifilm, the aperture is right here on the lens, the shutter dial is right here, and obviously the ISO depends on what film you choose. So the experience is ergonomically the same as shooting a traditional 35mm film camera, and I think that's what keeps me so engaged and encouraged to shoot with it, because not only do the photos look like film, your actions are the same as when you take a film picture. So to conclude, I think if you're able to find one of these for sale somewhere or purchase one, even with the markups, I don't think you'll regret it. I genuinely think this is the best beginner, amateur, and even professional level digital camera to have in 2023 because of its focus on the fundamental aspects of photography with the analog dials and engaging user experience, while also providing such beautiful and visually appealing images that are not only in trend, but images that you'll enjoy taking and being a part of the experience, which will only make them more memorable to look back on. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. It really means a lot. And have a great day. Bye.